ironically think that taking more risk and doing harder things is actually a safer career choice and a safer way to build your life than taking the sort of safe route or the 9-to-5 route. Because
my guest today is Scott Clary. He's the founder of Success Stories Podcast, one of the top business and advice podcasts in the world. We went deep on a bunch of topics, but if you care about the philosophical side of life as an entrepreneur, you need to listen. We discussed never taking the safe route, resilience, and how doing the hard things perversely, but frankly beautifully, put you in a safer position as an individual. Be careful about benchmarking yourself against others. Entrepreneurial excellence is about defining the life that you want to lead. Finally, constantly disrupt yourself, or you will absolutely, and without fail. I'm Adam Spector, four-time founder, investor in 200 plus startups, and CEO of Chore. We help founders outsource admin so they have more time, energy, focus, and money, frankly, to win. Time is your most finite resource. You need to think about where you spend it and how you spend it. Thank you for spending some with us. Let's dive in. Welcome to the next episode of the Entrepreneurial Excellence Podcast. It is with great pleasure I have Scott Clary with me today. And I think you're coming up on about 1,000 episodes.
yes, sir.
Oh,
That's right.
That's pretty amazing. The most interesting thing about your story is, one, of course, all the people you've had on there, and we can kind of learn from their associated wisdom via you. But also, you've had a lot of different jobs throughout your career. And when we were talking kind of pre-chat, you kind of said like most of them have been a failure. And the one that really stuck was actually being a podcast guest yourself. So that's its own entrepreneurial journey, sort of finding the thing that you're good at and that leads to your own level of success. Before we go deeper in here, like what did I miss in your background and story that you think is relevant just to kick things off?
I mean, I think that if I look at my background, I came from a family there was no like rags to riches story. My family was sort of secure in their jobs. They had good jobs. Dad worked for the government. My mom worked for a university. She took some time off when she had me and my brother, but she went back to work. So there's nothing too traumatizing about my upbringing, but there was a realization that I think this is something that a lot of entrepreneurs will understand. The life that our parents had and sort of the safety and security that our parents had, regardless of whether or not it was because of this was just sort of the path that you take in life. I don't believe that security and safety exists for many people that are listening to this podcast who are definitely just starting out in their career, and the people that have already started to build their own thing and are entrepreneurial understand that the traditional 9-to-5 is not as safe as many people assume it is. And I think that there's, for a variety of reasons, a shift, I would say not completely away from 9-to-5 and W-2, because there's nothing wrong with that style of, making a living and building a great career. But I think that there's a shift away from just being dependent on one predictable, quote unquote, source of income for 30 or 40 years, like maybe our parents did. It's very similar to what my parents did. And that shift is because I think that with emerging technology, with the fact that companies are much quicker to fire and lay off, I think that we're realizing that secure and safe path is not so secure and safe. And I sort of realized this very early on. And I wanted to future-proof myself to a degree, whether or not it's learning new things or jumping into new sort of riskier opportunities. And that sort of paved the way for my entire career and is really just my thesis on life. Like, jump into risk, do hard things. And I ironically think that taking more risk and doing harder things is actually a safer career choice and a safer way to build your life than taking the sort of safe route or the 9-to-5 route, because the skills that you learn, the people that you expose yourself to, the experiences, just everything that happens when you jump into a sort of a riskier entrepreneurial endeavor, it makes you such a resilient person that whatever you want to take on in life, whatever the next business is, I just think you have a better chance of succeeding at it, which in turn would make that riskier entrepreneurial endeavor actually more safe. So that's sort of like my life thesis that has sort of evolved over time. But I truly believe that doing these riskier things, taking chances, building for yourself, and not always being dependent on someone else, a career, a 9-to-5 job, that is going to be the way that most people have to think in the future, whether or not they're entrepreneurial and thinking that way within a company or entrepreneurial. I think that I was maybe just a little bit a couple of years ahead of the curve when it comes to thinking that's the way that I want to build my career and my life.
So I tend to agree, and I imagine most entrepreneurs do. But why is a large percentage of the population doesn't have that mindset or doesn't take that direction? Like what extra push do they need to have that? Because once again, I think you're right that the world is going to require you to be that way. Like the idea of a safe job isn't a thing, hasn't been a thing, right? Pensions don't exist anymore, hasn't been a real thing for forever. So people have to force themselves to have that mindset. But how do you force yourself to have that entrepreneurial mindset?
Well, I think to answer your first question, why, it's because a lot of people are taking instruction and listening to individuals where that was their reality. So if we look at most of our parents and grandparents, I don't know how old you are, but I think we're roughly around the same age. So our parents and grandparents, that was the reality. They did have private companies, did have pensions.
My grandfather worked for, I believe it was the Bechtel Corporation, which is an engineering corporation, doesn't exist anymore, but it maybe exists. I know it was acquired. I'm sure all these other things. I think it was his entire career. And what he got at the end, I'm sure he got a pension and he probably got some other good things. Yeah. I remember he actually got a gold Rolex watch for being there for like 40 years or something.
That's why.
And my dad has it. And I've told my dad, like, I want to inherit that someday. I don't think it's something I would ever wear, but just as a symbolism of a different age. I'll have to see between my brother and myself who gets it, but like symbolism of a different age.
Well, okay, so people don't understand. So there used to be, now the government has pensions. Government still has pensions, but a lot of private, they either don't have pensions or they have a contribution pension where you have to put money into it, right? And
it's such a 401k.
Yeah, it's a 401k. You're just like, and someone's like managing your money for you, and it's probably really shitty returns compared to what you could do on your own if you actually understood a little bit about it.
So my wife, you might see, no one ever sees my wife on the video, but maybe today because we're in a different location than my normal one, as frequent listeners and watchers will know. And so she might come through the main door, which is right behind me. But when we first got together, so she works for a major healthcare company. And we got together, I started looking at her financials and was looking at like her base year 401k, which is like a 403b, but it's like the same thing for healthcare. And it was literally just kept in like cash. And I was like, what is going on here? This is like malpractice. What is happening? And we changed that. And that was, 15 years ago. And thank God the market's had an amazing run in the past 15 years.
Yeah.
But most people don't think about that. And it's insane. Like there is essentially, my view is like malpractice on the part of the 403b administrator and frankly the administrators of that organization to not take care of that on her behalf. Most people are not financially savvy. They don't think about it. They just say, okay, like to her credit, she was putting money aside, but it was going nowhere. It was sitting in cash and essentially losing money with inflation.
Exactly. So you made a really good point. So a lot of us operate based on what schools teach us or what our parents teach us. That really forms our mental model of the world when we're young, right? There's no other.
It makes sense, right? I mean, of course,
it's fine.
Your life.
But the issue is that we never move past that. So to your wife's example with the sort of the antiquated way of looking at investment and wealth building, also the antiquated way of looking at career, the antiquated way of looking at retirement. These are all ideas that served a past generation very well. They do not serve our current reality. So you asked me like how I got into entrepreneurship and trying to build all these businesses and working with startups and starting my podcast and building leverage and all these different things that are really fun. And they're very common in our circles, but our circles are not the majority. The majority of people are playing a game by the rules that don't how do I say this? They're playing a game that really doesn't exist anymore with rules that are outdated and antiquated. And they're not updating because, again, all they've been told up until they're like 20, 21 is what their parents' experiences were or what the teachers that are sort of these cogs in the machine of an education system were told to teach them. And I think that it's really hard to reframe your mental model when you don't have any positive reference points. So that's why listening to podcasts like this or exposing yourself to people on YouTube that are thinking about career and investing differently or, reading books. These are all great tools. We all know they're great tools, but the majority of people, they aren't even living lives that are their own. They don't really take a second and pause and be like, hey, is this career that I'm in that I've spent so much time and energy and money getting the educational accolades to pursue, is it something that I want to do? Is it something that makes sense in 2025 and beyond? Is it something that my parents wanted for me? Is it something that my guidance counselor or career coach wanted for me when I was still in high school? So I think that you asked me like sort of what's my quick background. I've done a couple different things, some successful, some not, but ultimately I don't really care like what I've done. I care about how I view the world, because that's going to set me up for success. I care about the mental model or the frame that I apply to, who I am as a professional. I also care about, like, if I'm playing a certain game or if I'm building a certain thing, why am I doing that? Is it because it's something I want to do? Is it because it's something that my parents wanted for me? Is it something that I feel like there's a sunk cost and I put too much energy in and I'm just doing it because I've been doing it for the past 10 years? I just think that people need to take a second and look inside. And it sounds maybe a little bit trite and a little bit cliche, but actually understand, when I wake up in the morning and the stuff that I do throughout my day, why am I doing that? Is it something that I want to do? Or is it something that someone else has sort of told me I should be doing? And when more people have that conversation, it usually happens, when you're 60, that's your midlife crisis. But if people had that conversation earlier on in their life, I think there'd be a lot more people that would be happy and fulfilled, because they'd work on things, take more risks, take more chances. And then on the other side of those risks and chances, and delineating from the path that their parents were on, or that, their friends are on, they would end up more happy and fulfilled and not look back on their life with regret. And that's my worldview. People could agree with that, disagree with that, whatever, it doesn't matter. That's how I look at life.
Funny. I do wonder, so this is very philosophical now for both of us, but like, how does a person get past, can you ever fully get past the life that has been chosen for you? Like you're a combination of generations of genes that have built up that have hopefully made you partially who you are.
Yes.
The fact that you were born in a certain location, to parents a certain way. Like, yes, you can still think differently and freely and outside the box there, but there's certain things that put you on a path no matter what.
Correct. And then to break out of that path is definitely harder. We can't pretend that that privilege doesn't exist, and opportunity, sort of like a ridiculous amount of opportunity, doesn't exist more for some people than others. But you ask the question, is it possible? Well, I've yet to find an example of somebody, like, whatever their situation is, there's always an example of somebody who has had it worse, who's done more than you ever could have imagined possible. Like that's just the way that I look at it. Like, it doesn't matter which country you're born in, what your financial situation is, what your even your physical limitations. I mean, I have a good friend, Nick. He has no legs and like basically half of one arm, and he gets paid $50,000 plus to do motivational speaking. He flies private. Like, he's killed it. He has a massive audience. Like, I don't think anybody would look at him and say that he has more opportunity than the average two-armed, two-legged individual. So I think that it's a matter of perspective. And yeah, for sure, it's going to be difficult. And nobody said this was easy. Nobody said life was ever going to be easy. But I think that to just give up, I think that's the incorrect answer.
Although it sounds like to some extent you're implying that the large majority of people in the world probably do give up, since most people are not entrepreneurs.
I guess you have to define what giving up means.
Sure.
I think that before you can decide if somebody's quote unquote given up, that person probably doesn't even think they've given up, because they haven't even given enough thought to what they actually want to accomplish. That's my bigger issue, is that people aren't, having the critical thought or creating the space in their life to figure out if the path that they're on is the path that they actually want to be on. That's the prerequisite. How can you give up on something that you don't even know that you want? Yeah. I think more people don't put thought or care into their life than give up. I think that once you actually understand what lights you up, and we can talk about a couple ideas that I have about how to move towards that goal that you actually desire. And they're very tactical things. I'm not like some life coach here. We can talk about reverse engineering success. We can talk about architecting your life so you can de-risk building a business, so you don't go bankrupt on the way to starting a company. These are all very tactical ways to pursue the thing that you, or the goal that you actually want to accomplish. But I think that people have to understand what that goal is, or they have to define their own personal North Star. And I don't believe enough people do that.
I tend to agree very much. And I'll give you sort of a personal story on that front that this really, I don't think I've ever talked about this publicly, but this is very pertinent here. My sophomore year, after my sophomore year, maybe after my freshman year of college, I wanted to go work on a farm. I'm a city kid from Washington, D.C., wanted to go work on a farm. And my parents thought I was crazy. They're like, why aren't you getting a normal sort of internship? Like, what are you doing? Like, I'm going to go work. I worked for room and board. So making no money, working for room and board. It didn't cost a lot to live up in the middle of Maine where I went. Ended up on this farm. It was a great experience for a number of reasons. But like the pertinent one is I remember having a conversation. There was one other sort of intern there with me on this farm that we were on. And I remember telling her, I was like, I know what the rest of my life is going to be. Like, I can see the path. Like, I literally look here. I know my future for the next 60 years. And here are the things that are going to happen. And she said to me, she's like, but why? Like, why does that have to be your life?
It's a good friend. It's a good friend to have. Yeah.
And we had an amazing summer, in a lot of different ways. Like, it was a really cool summer. And it really sparked my will. I mean, I'm proud of myself for sort of saying that, at least out loud, that like, I can see what my path is going to be. Because you have to ask that question first to even be to think critically about the rest of it. And that then led to all the things that I've been able to do and achieve. And I feel like, of course, I have so much more to do. But also at the same time, because people ask me a lot, well, how do you feel about things? Where are you in life? And I say, look, I'm really content with things. But the reason I feel content is because I feel like I've logically made a lot of decisions. And those decisions have led to outcomes that I want to be part of. Like, the world has not happened to me. I've happened to the world. That makes sense.
Yes.
And
Dude,
therefore,
of course, that's internal locus of control. That's literally a Mark Andreessen quote, by the way. Like that the world is malleable to your will. Yes, I absolutely fully agree with that.
Yeah. So that's where I am, and I feel great about it. Like, that's my life, and the decisions I made, I don't regret them. And if I don't like them, I can go change them. Right? If I don't want to be doing this podcast, if I don't want to be in this place that we're at right now with my family, I don't have to be here. No one has made me be here. But it's also due to the choices that I've made and the work that I've done. I am here. And that's very satisfying in a lot of ways.
I love it. But you have a very healthy view of the world, and you have. I think that's why you're successful, because there's a few things that you mentioned, and I'll try and codify them, because I've spoken about these ideas a lot, and I see these ideas. These are not like new ideas. Obviously, these are ideas that the most successful people on this planet all believe. Like having agency. You happening to the world, not the world happening to you. These are all ideas that literally everybody who's built anything meaningful truly believes. They've just phrased them differently. One of the main ideas that I really love, and it's sort of just, it'll codify what we were just speaking about in terms of, are we working on the right things? So the concept is, and this is not like a psychological concept, it's just an idea, sort of a thought experiment that I've put some energy into, because I think it really tells this story very well. The concept of metaphorically dying every night. What does that mean? So metaphorically, obviously, pretend that you die every single night. And what that means is when you wake up in the morning, you're a new person and you have no responsibilities. So the job that you're doing, the business you're building, the calls that you had scheduled, even the person you're dating or married to, let's just assume that you didn't have any responsibility to that person. There's zero sunk costs. There's no attachment to what you have on that day or who you serve or who you engage with. Then you think about all the things you're doing, and you think, if I had no obligation to anything, would I choose to do that thing today? Would I choose to build that business? Would I choose to be married to this person? And the goal of this exercise is not to blow up your life and cancel everything and divorce your wife and then kill your business. The goal is to understand, would I choose that thing today? And if not, that's a signal that there's something off, that there's lack of alignment. If you wouldn't choose your wife or your husband or your girlfriend or boyfriend or partner or spouse every single day, you should figure out why. You should figure out why that's not. If you wouldn't choose your business, why not? Yeah. So I think that this is a good exercise just to sort of recalibrate and understand, am I working on the right things? Am I living the life that I want to live? And you're probably going to get some unsettling answers, but it's not an excuse for you to blow up your life, but it's definitely an excuse for you to start to do the work required to either choose that thing or remove that thing from your life. Because I believe we only live once. I guess people have different beliefs on that, but I believe you only live once. So I think that it is important to live in alignment with what you actually want to do and what you would choose every single day.
The point that you just made about that is funny. I also used to do that. So and I probably still do. Like I actually used to have moments where laying in bed at night, I would have tears over like my future death or my company failing or my job failing. I would like cry about it a little bit in bed.
Wow.
And then you wake up, you're like, all right, cool. Like what's the worst that could actually happen? Like now I know what that feels like now. I've essentially brought that in. I felt what this future failure might be or how that's not going to work. And so I'm more okay with that outcome, obviously, but it also means I want to do everything I can to avoid that outcome. But I've sort of it's almost like a pre-mortem for.
I love it. I know what I was going to say. I can't remember if this was 100% what I wanted to touch on, but like the idea of sunk cost is so detrimental to high performing individuals. The idea that just because I've put energy into something, I should continue it. It's so toxic. And like, I fall victim to this all the time, but I am very consciously, like this week, I've killed like 5 things that I absolutely love doing because I realize that it's actually serving more my ego than actually moving my life to where I want it to go. And I think that I had an interview with Dr. Benjamin Hardy, and he had a really good point about in life, what you should do is you should set goals that are so unreasonable, meaning like not just like 2x goals or 5x goals or 10x goals, like 100x goals. Set goals that are so unreasonable that it forces you to kill all the bullshit that's not moving your life forward in pursuit of those goals. And it's really just like a commentary on stop playing small, because we start to build and then we kind of get comfortable. And then all entrepreneurs start to do all these bullshit things that don't really move the needle, but they're fun to do. I mean, I used to speak on stage more often than I do now. I killed that because it really wasn't moving my business forward. It was just, I like it. I fly, I get put up in a hotel. You make a couple $1,000 the speaking fee. Meanwhile, that's like 4 days, 4 days, 4 days of travel. It really, really is not a good use of your time unless you are a professional speaker or unless you're speaking at like, you're keynoting at like South by or some shit like that. Like for the average event, as fun as it is, it's not moving the business forward. It's serving your own ego. I've launched other podcasts. I've launched other newsletters. I've worked on companies that just are fun things to work on. Are they really moving my personal life goal, business goals to the point where I have like the biggest business podcast in the world or the biggest, self-improvement podcast in the world? No, they're not. They're fun. They make a little bit of money. They're serving your ego. There's a sunk cost fallacy because you put so much energy into it. You don't want to kill it. Every single day you're like, it's like 2 hours of my time. It's not a big deal. I'm like, what if one day it makes me $100 million? And deep down, it's not fucking making you $100 million, but you're just like, I just enjoy it. So, but the thing is that people exist in this state of doing all this bullshit for the majority of their life. So they think that just being an entrepreneur is brave. I get it. Good. You quit your job, you started the company. But the next level is to actually focus on the things that take your company to where it needs to go or take your life to where it needs to go, not just do all the other fun ancillary shit that just takes up your time. And I think that we all fall victim to that, especially entrepreneurs.
What is the boundary though? Like what should be fun and not fun as an entrepreneur? Like you need to have time in your life for fun.
Yes, but you have to know what your goals are. So what are your family goals? What are your business goals? What's your number? What's your actual number? You don't want to be in business for the next 70 years. Like maybe like why don't you want to exit? Why don't you want to hit a certain revenue milestone and then hire a CEO so you can go travel and spend time with what's your actual number? How many kids do you want? Do you want to be married? Which city do you want to live in? Which country do you want to live in? How many hours per week do you want to work? Like map out your life, because if you map out your life, then you know what it takes to get there. Yep. But if you don't ever map out your life, then that's when you do all the bullshit. It's fine to have fun. Like you have to have some fun in what you're building. But I don't think that, listen, if we're going to be honest with ourselves, what would you rather be doing? Would you rather build a business that can sell for say $20 million and then reinvest that money and just live off the interest and then be able to travel and spend time with your family? Or, maybe you and like you accomplish that in say 7 years, I think that's a great outcome. I don't think that many people would say, well, I do fun shit in my business, so I'm going to do it for the next 30 years. And at least I can do fun shit, but I can't spend as much time with my family. Like, no one's going to say that. Like, no one's actually going to say that. Like, you say, like, you should be doing fun stuff in your business. Like, what, how do you quantify fun? Like, spending 2 months in a villa in the south of France, not talking to anybody and just enjoying wine and cheese, that's beautiful. Like, doing 5 more podcasts that week, I guess, is objectively fun compared to all the other shit I do in the business. But is that really fucking fun? No, it's not fucking fun. The south of France is fun. Like, that's actual fun. So I think that we have to really reevaluate, again, what are our business goals? How do we get there? And stop making up these fun little side business quests just because we don't want to achieve the big goal and we're scared of doing the actual activities or focusing on the things that will actually get us there. That's my point about fun.
No, and you're right. Like, so many people, their whole thing is like, essentially, everything's a distraction. They just want to find distractions and not actually go after the big thing because the thinking's so hard. It scares them to find a million distractions to do that.
Of course. And then it feels like you're busy, right? But you're just wasting your life
every day. Like, I'm doing work, I'm getting stuff done. I'm like, yeah, but what does it matter? I mean, I have a bunch of friends who travel nonstop for their businesses. They go to all these conferences which aren't even related to their things. I'm like, what are you doing? I basically don't travel at all anymore because I've essentially determined that, one, I pay a lot of money to be in San Francisco and everyone comes to SF anyway. So I can already have people meeting in person if they're going to come to my town. But two, it's more important for me to be with my family right now. And it's more important, I can touch and reach a lot more people virtually, digitally, than I can in person, and going to some random conference and hope I run into the right person. Like, that's not worth it for me. Speaking of, so one, what is your goal? What is your goal? When you think through what your focus is and your goal, what is your number? Is it a number? Is it a goal? What is it?
It's a really good question. I've had different goals. So I think that, there's a few things that I really want to do. I do really want to have a family. I do really want to have kids. That's important for me.
Does that become harder? Sorry to
yeah.
Does that become harder as you're getting more famous in a sense? Like, is that harder for you now, or like if your business does better, does it become harder for you to achieve other goals?
I think because you get obsessed with progress. So like and you get obsessed with results, and it's very scary for somebody whose entire identity is wrapped up into their business to sort of reimagine their identity as something else. Because I'm self-aware to understand that my identity and like my worth, I'm sure some psychologists could definitely comment on this, but my worth right now is tied into, my business and financial success. I don't think that's healthy. I really don't think that's healthy. I think that you have to understand that there are seasons in life, and that there are seasons in life to building and to being focused on work. And I do like Jeff Bezos's regret minimization framework. So, you move forward to, you sort of glance into the future when you're 100 years old and you're on your deathbed, and you look back at your life and you just don't want to have any regrets. And I think that if you are looking back on your life with this exercise and you're like, okay, if I died, if I was Scott now, didn't have a family, just podcasted for the next 40 years, whatever, 30 years. I'm not that young. Maybe I'll live to 120, who knows? But so if I was just podcasting, I didn't have a family, and I was on my deathbed and there was like no loved ones around me, like that, I would have a massive regret. And I feel like that's how you shift your identity. The thing you have to fear, I think you have to fear not accomplishing that thing while you're alive. I think that a little bit of realization.
If I won't have a family, because you have that fear, it pushes.
That helps me move the identity away from wealth and business and work and whatnot to something that's more meaningful.
Yeah. And so on the note of regret minimization framework, a little bit for a second, you want to maybe define that a bit more for people? So the reason I asked, because you started off by saying essentially like, you should be an entrepreneur, take risks, understand what you're doing in life. Whereas the true regret minimization framework would be take no risk, take the easy path. Your parents hand you a business, you take that, or okay.
I don't think so. I think that I would regret not taking chances, and I would regret not building something that I can call my own. I think that there's many things that I like. To your point, you asked me what my goals were. So my goals are to have a family. That's only the first goal. I think that the number that I would be happy with in terms of like, this is cash invested and I can just live off the returns, like 25 million. I think that's a decent, like if that's not equity, that's like, I have that as a wire and I can put that into investment. I can live off like 4%. In most cities in the world, you'd live quite well. I think that would be a number that I'd be happy with.
Although, aren't there a lot of people who they always say a number and then suddenly that number grows because their lifestyle grows?
Yeah, of course.
Next window needs to be 300, 250 million, and then needs to be $1 billion. And, now you need Jeff Bezos' wedding in
Venice. Yeah. That they're
Venice.
protesting, right? They're protesting, right?
Yeah, exactly. So but Jeff probably doesn't care. He's like, okay, it sucks I can't do it directly in Venice because they have to move it or something.
I don't think he gives two shits. Not as a slight to him. I mean, it's why would he? I mean, he has unlimited amounts of money. He's, it's a wedding. He's celebrating. I don't think he cares about what the average protester in Venice is protesting. Anyways, whatever. That's a whole other conversation. I think they're protesting because I saw the sign and it said there was a big sign in a square in Venice, and it said, if you can afford to have your wedding in Venice, you can afford to pay more tax. And I'm like, okay, there's levels to why that's an interesting protest, but like,
yeah. But like, so for him, right,
so to your point, lifestyle creep happens. You do move your own goalposts. I'm actually more concerned because lifestyle creep is something you can manage if you have like half a brain, but moving your own goalposts is more of like this very nefarious psychological problem where I don't think that money is a result. I think needing more money is a result of lifestyle creep. I think that needing more money is a result of moving your own goalposts. And say you're making like, I don't know, like I hate how Instagram has made absurd amounts of money seem insignificant, but say you're making like, $2-3 million a year with a really healthy business, which is like insane money for most people. Even though on Instagram, that would make you seem like you're poor, but say you had a good lifestyle business. Yeah. So then the issue is not that your lifestyle creeps. It does, but that's not the big issue. The issue is that you start looking at Instagram and then you move your own goalposts and you're like, fuck, I'm only making $2 or $3 million a year, but like, I'm not on like Forbes hasn't written an article on me in my landscaping business. It makes $2 million a year. And all my friends, like one of my friends had an exit of, $150 million. Now forget the fact that they raised venture money and they were taxed significantly on the exit and they went through multiple rounds. And maybe the founder only left with, 15 million when it's all said and done, which is great one-time payout. You're making $2-3 million a year and you can continue that business on for X number of years. But in your mind, you're like, I didn't have a $150 million exit. So now, because I haven't really set my goals, now what's going to happen is, even though I'm happy here, I'm benchmarking against all my friends, which are also cool and successful because we all go to the same private members clubs and we all we go out on each other's boats and they have really nice boats and I don't have a really nice boat. And, I fly first, but then like that one friend, like they fly private all the time. So, and then you're like, you keep saying, okay, so then I don't know, is like 2 million actually good? Maybe I should make a little bit more. Maybe I should try and franchise my landscaping business and maybe I should go into other states. And then all of a sudden, and maybe I should go raise money, or maybe I should think about selling off a piece of that equity, even though when I started, I really just wanted to hand this business over to my kids. So because you haven't actually set up goals, you start moving your own goalposts and then you start to become unhappy because you're benchmarking against everyone else. And I think that is a much more nefarious problem with high performing people than lifestyle creep. Lifestyle creep for sure. But I mean, like, if you're a smart person and you have a good spouse and a good partner, which is key, and you're not overspending and they're not overspending, you can have honest conversations about wealth and money and where you spend it. Lifestyle creep shouldn't be a problem. It's a bigger problem when you're not honest about where you're spending money or you're living in debt or whatever. But there was a case of a guy who killed himself.
I was going to ask you about that. This was the real estate person. Yeah, you want to tell that story right now? I mean, it's sort of a really interesting story.
I'll tell you the parts of the story that I know, and I'm sure that we can Google it or pull up sort of some of the missing gaps. But basically, this guy there was a real estate guy. At some point, I think he was very successful.
How
compared
do
to
you
like
success financially success?
financial success. Every other part of his life was not successful. That's a good point, because I think that he was lying to his wife and he was stealing from his friends, and it was a combination of Ponzi scheme and over leveraged. And I don't know what his wife knew about his true financial situation, but I do know that she was like flexing on Instagram nonstop, and it was all about lifestyle. So it was like absurd spending. Like, it was insane, right? Like, it was looking like somebody who is, sold a company for $500 million. It was like private all the time. House was enormous, which was, I think, heavily leveraged. Everything was above and beyond, like Birkins, like every nonstop luxury trips, everything. And it was to the point where it's like, who actually, like, the wife wasn't an influencer, quote unquote. She was just like a rich person. So I think that even the sentiment was like, why are you spending so much money? Like, who is this for? Like, this is an absurd amount of money for somebody that, okay, a little real estate empire, cool, but this is absurd, right? It was like an absurd amount of money. And I think that he was borrowing money from friends in terms of like, I have this great quote unquote investment opportunity. And I think he was borrowing money from banks. And I think the house was like way over leveraged. And I think that all of that money was just going into lifestyle spending. And it got to the point, I don't know. I don't really understand how people get themselves into this mess. I never understood that, the psychology of a person who, I guess maybe that's why they're criminals, because they don't think like the average person. But stealing money and just spending it, like, how do you ever think you're going to get out of that? I don't know. But his way out was suicide, and he killed himself.
I mean, isn't the way maybe people think about it? This is sort of in a way similar to like any investment, right? Why do people take millions and millions and millions of dollars from venture capitalists? They're not stealing it, of course. There are.
Well, no, there's a big difference between raising from VC and just taking money that you say is for real estate and spending it.
Well, sure, but there are a lot of entrepreneurs who say, "I have a big dream and an idea, and you give me this money today, invest it, in 10 years from now, we're going to give you 100."
Yeah, well, yeah, that's how all VC works. Yeah,
right. But that's probably I can imagine someone justifying something like what you're describing in their mind. Be like, if we take this money today, we're going to build this big business from it. It's going to be a big, we're going to be social media influencers and build this big business. And next thing you know, we can pay it all off because of our like they might have.
I think that's a stretch. I mean, like, again, I don't know everything about this story. I'm just reading like tabloids and whatnot. But from what I understood, it was like traditional Ponzi scheme where you literally say like, hey, this is the investment that your money's going into. And it goes into like a checking account, and then you go buy a car and a Birkin.
Actually made an investment myself where it was a VC investment. Found it was complete fraud. It did something the same thing. Not to say like it can happen anywhere. So hold on.
Oh, I know it can happen anywhere. It can totally happen anywhere. It could now also you can put money into a ton of different opportunities. You can put money into. I've lost money in VC. I mean, you can put money into real estate. You can lose your ass in VC, real estate. You can lose your ass anywhere. But listen, there's a difference between fraud and the founder trying to use the money to grow the business, and they, for whatever reason, just can't do it. And I mean, the end result is the same, but the intention is much different.
Right, which intent is very important, of course, even in the law. So going back to something like we're question I asked everyone in the beginning, which we skipped over because we got sort of deep on some things. How do you define entrepreneurial excellence? Like, what does an excellent entrepreneur look like? And to some extent, once again, like, what is the definition? Success is related to excellence, maybe, but then you have to define success as well. But what does that look like?
It's good that you didn't ask it at the beginning, because I think that now a lot of the things that we've spoken about will lead to the answer. So what does entrepreneurial success look like? I think it's very subjective. I think you have to define it for yourself. So I think that somebody who has a great relationship with their spouse and their kids, and again, has that $2 million business and can sleep like a baby every single night. They've hired a great operations manager to run a lot of the day-to-day. That's entrepreneurial excellence. For somebody who wants to change the world and they want to, find the cure for cancer, Well, that definition is not going to be the same for them. They're going to try and, raise a ton of money, find ways to, encourage the best and brightest minds in the world to work with them. You're going to have much bigger dreams and aspirations, and maybe that's what success looks like for you. And if you find that cure for cancer, or if you do whatever you're trying to do, this big audacious goal or dream, and you do that, and you don't care about kids, and you don't care about friends, and you don't care about marriage, and you don't care about any of that stuff, I would say that's not healthy. But I'm not you. And maybe for you, that's entrepreneurial excellence. So I think that entrepreneurial excellence is defining your perfect life, or your North Star, or whatever objective it is that you want to accomplish, and then achieving it. That's really it. I mean, if you've achieved the life that you want to achieve, and you're happy and you're fulfilled, I mean, that's all any of us really want. So there is subjective
part almost. Then the definition of entrepreneurial is making your decisions, sort of choosing your career path.
I think that the definition is like architecting the life that you want to live. That is the entrepreneurial part. You have the life in your mind that you want to live, and then you find a way to go get it. I'll give you an example in my life. So I'm recording this podcast from a studio that's in my guest house in my backyard. So my entire business is on my property. It's just all here. And I've done that purposefully. Like, I don't really feel like driving 30 minutes into a commercial space or a studio that I rented on the other side of town. Like, I don't love that idea. I don't want to be stuck in traffic. I want to walk 5 feet, and I want cool people to sit in the chair that's literally right there, and I can speak with them. And listen, dude, there's a lot of other ways to make money in this world. And maybe at some point I'll want to pursue some of those different ways to make money. Podcasting is good. Podcasting is not everybody's a Joe Rogan. It makes good money. It doesn't make $100 million Spotify contract money, or $200 million, or whatever the fuck you made recently. Like, it's good, but it's not only about money. I enjoy the conversations. I enjoy, you asked me earlier what my goals were. And one of the goals that I didn't mention is I get a lot of fulfillment when I help somebody figure out their life, or if they're, trying to figure out how to build something or a problem in their business. And obviously it's impossible for me to help every single person in this world, but I feel like if I have a conversation with a really smart entrepreneur or a really smart person, part of that conversation can help that individual. That is one of my goals, and that actually gives me a lot of fulfillment. It's just something that teaching has been something that I feel like I've always been put on this earth to do. Like, ever since one of my first jobs ever was a tennis coach. And I know that it's a little bit different than podcasting, but to see somebody's transformation from where they are to where they end up, and knowing that like a little bit of what you've learned in your life can help facilitate that transformation, that's just like it's a very rewarding thing to do. So between the fact that this podcast is teaching and hopefully helping people, it's 5 feet from my house, it makes some money, I've like architected my life to a degree. I really have. I've architected. I live in Miami. It's like, weather's great. Compared to Canada, it's a decent tax situation. Like, listen, there's negatives all the time and there's positives, but ultimately I'm pretty happy, pretty content with where I'm at right now. And now, like, it's a season of my life where I can start to have a family and start to have kids. And this is sort of my focus. And maybe, I'm not that old. Maybe in 10, 15 years, maybe I'll want to do something different. Maybe I'll be sick of the podcast. Maybe I'll be like, hey, I want to take revenue on the podcast from here to here. So let's, start doing live podcasting tours and shit like that. I don't know. I have no idea. But that's not my ambition right now. My ambition right now, like everything I just mentioned, family, make some good money, inspire, teach, educate. I've architected my life to fulfill all of those needs and desires that I have. And in my mind, that is entrepreneurial excellence. It's not a number. It's an outcome.
Yeah, no, I love that. Not a number. It's an outcome. Walk us through, maybe, speaking of how you got to the point in your life where you can feel like you can think through the outcomes and making those sort of entrepreneurial decisions that led you there. If I recall, you started, where's my list of things, right? You were in big telecom in Canada, do small telecom, then PE. You started doing investing, you've lost some money on VC investing, you started some private equity firms. Those have all failed. All these things, you sort of tried all these different things.
Yeah.
What in that life history steps was like, I'm going to go do A to B to C. And then when do you know when to cut that off to move to something new?
I think that across my career, again, like I've had different goals at different points in my life. And some of those things maybe could have been more successful if I felt like when you jump into something and you realize there's like lack of alignment with the people that you're working with the fact that it's not really benefiting your life, but it's subtracting from it. Maybe it's like too much travel, or you feel like, you know what, I started this thing with the wrong partner, and if I take it to the next level, I can only see it being messier, and it's going to be more stressful, and it's going to take away more of my life and my energy than I really want it to. How do you know when to cut things off if you just don't enjoy doing them anymore? Like, that's really the easy answer. I don't even know how else to describe it. Like, there hasn't been a single thing in my life where I'm like, if I pour more of myself into this and push through to the next level, I'm going to enjoy doing it in the capacity that I'm doing it right now. Whether or not it's usually the people that you work with or the direction that it's heading. I don't know how else to describe it. It's just, I can just look into the future and be like, you know what? This isn't the way that I want to, this is not the life that I want to set up for myself.
But isn't there an argument, and you've interviewed so many people who've been in this position, so maybe you've seen this too, where sometimes you just stick with it, and sometimes like you just need to stick with it longer, and you
can
reach that point.
Correct. Yes, you can get to the point where, yes, you can stick with it, but two things can be true at the same time. So yes, you can stick with it. And I think that if you stick with anything for a long enough period of time, you will find a way to make it successful. But I think you also have to ask yourself, what does my life look like if this thing is successful? So what I mean by that is, if you think of the things that I've killed over the past few years, I've killed like a vitamin supplement company. I've stopped investing in VC because of really, I was not good at vetting the opportunities. Even when I was doing private equity and a couple other things that I've tried to take on, it was really, the reason why I killed it was, if I do this thing for the next 15 years, are the partners involved in this going to be people that I want to work with? Do I think that these are the people that are really, really going to take this thing to the next level? And the answer was, or is the upside, if I make it successful, worth the energy and effort that I'm putting in? And in all of the things that I've killed and shut down, the answer was no. You could make the argument that you could make each one of those things successful. And if you do, that means that, okay, so how much of my energy and time and life am I going to put into this thing? And also, if you do have partners that have equity in the company, this means that you're going to be partners with these people for the next 10, 15, 20 plus years. And is this the right partner that I want to build it with? It's an easier conversation when you own 100% of something and you're just responsible to yourself and you just answer to yourself. But when you have partners, it's like a marriage. Like, you have to think about, okay, is this the person that I really want to keep building this thing with? And a lot of the things that I killed early on because I felt that the partners that I was working with were not the right partners to take it to the next level. And if you look into the future, you realize that it's going to be more problems than it's worth. So the right partners can totally, I mean, I'm not against having business partners and you know, having a piece of something versus having the whole thing. But I think that one lesson that I've learned repeatedly, and it's something that, again, when you first start building a company, starting a company from scratch, I don't think you put in a lot of thought into this because you get so excited about the opportunity and you find somebody else who's equally as excited, and you jump into something with somebody. And I think you have to put a lot more care into who you partner up with and who you do business with, because realize that they're going to be with you and around you for a long time. And if you feel like it's not the right partnership, I think you have to kill it or find a way to get out of it as soon as possible before there's significant time and energy and money invested into that thing. But that's really what's caused me to sort of kill a lot of the things that I've taken on that haven't worked out. It's like, I don't feel like I'm building it with the right people.
Are there heuristics you use or suggest people use to find the right partner? Like, how do you think through that?
I think that working with them before you officially work with them is important. I think that people that go out of their way to solve problems. So complementary skill sets is a must for sure. So meaning that you don't find somebody that is sort of like this, that has the same competency as you. Some people, and I think you're probably one of these people because you have had success and you built businesses. Some people have such ownership and extreme ownership and responsibility towards the outcome. They'll just move mountains to figure out how to solve a problem. I don't know how else to describe it, but they will do anything in their power. They are just people that figure shit out. I'm one of those people. There's not really many problems that I can't figure out myself. Now, the issue when you are one of those people is that if you don't have a person or that you want to partner with who is that same personality type, they start to rely on you because you're reliable, you're hardworking, you'll figure shit out. And there's this like power dynamic that shifts. And then all of a sudden, all the heavy lifting, all the problem solving, all the bullshit just starts to flow into you. And I think that that's an unhealthy dynamic with a partner. I think that maybe you ask for heuristic, high agency, internal locus of control, feels like they can impact the world doesn't impact them. No victim mentality bullshit. Doesn't matter the problem that we're dealing with. We'll figure it out. And somebody that gets excited about doing hard shit as opposed to, oh, I don't know how to do this. Can you help me figure it out? And maybe a way to figure that out with somebody or figure out if the person is a right fit to partner with is to work on a small project before you actually start to work with them formally. So put together an event, launch an MVP with them, throw up a website and drive some traffic to it and put a type form on that website. See if you get some interest in the product that you're trying to sell. Like just put together a small project and see how much, and you should be like the right partner. You should be arguing for, no, please, like, let me do that, as opposed to them just pushing all this stuff onto you. Yeah.
Totally agree with that. How do you think though, how do you get to a point as a leader where, let's say you do have a good partner, but you still have to be good at handing things off? So in other words, what I mean by that is any company, if you're that sort of person who's just going to get things done, you start building your company, everyone else is going to start relying on you too. They're going to be like, I know Scott's going to be able to take care of it for me. I'm going to do my job. But how do you get good at sort of delegating and not becoming that central person, right? Some people even want that ego part. Like, I'm the person. I want everyone to come to me for everything. I'm going to be super hands-on. Should you be that way? Should you not be that way?
Yes. And I think that also one more thing that is very important when you're building a business with somebody or when you're hiring, obviously when you hire somebody, you can always fire them. You can't fire somebody who you've given them equity in your company.
You can fire.
You can. Yes, but you know what I mean. It's not as easy as firing a hire.
Not as easy, that's for sure. This is, by the way, I will say this is why I tell founders never do 50-50 with a founder, number one. And number two, something that very few people do, highly recommend. Anyone who's a co-founder title should have 3 equity grants over 6 years. And what that does is essentially puts a standard distribution of equity granting. So by year 3 is when you're getting the most amount of your equity. And by year 3, it's when you really know, is that person someone I want to be my co-founder who's making stuff happen and we're growing this, or are they not? And if they're not, you'll know and you can fire them and they don't walk away with, if they're by year 3 and you have a standard 4-year vest, they're walking away, and they have 50% of the company, they're walking away and get my numbers wrong, but like 35% of the company or something. Like, that's insane.
Yeah, I know. So I do like, yes. So you could, the more like tactical things are like, yes, you should have vesting periods on equity. I do agree. Like somebody should be 51% for sure. I also think like articulating clear roles and responsibilities is very important. I mean, I think that these are obvious things once you've gone through it a few times, but the natural setup for a first-time founder and a co-founder is like 2 people that get super excited about an idea and then jump into it together.
Yeah, they don't define those roles. They don't define
roles. No, they don't define roles. They don't define responsibilities. It's all ambiguous. It's all like, let's just figure everything out together. That's incorrect. And also delegate, you asked about delegating too. I mean, you have to understand what your core strengths are. And part of delegation is defining clear roles and responsibilities with your co-founder from the get-go. And also with the employees that you hire. I think that, listen, when you're hiring people as an entrepreneur, when you first start a business, you're going to be the jack of all trades and you're going to probably have to do most of the things in your business yourself, unless you have an unlimited amount of capital, but that's not the reality for most people. So you're going to have to, say you and a co-founder, you delegate responsibilities. So at least there's some delineation between what you do, what they do. Then you codify those responsibilities. Whether or not it's like writing a document or screen recording a Loom video, just start to build a library of the different systems and processes and tasks that you do day in, day out. And then that's when you can hire, and then you can hand over those tasks to somebody. And I think the first hire for most companies, when you're delegating tasks, you should be hiring somebody that can just take some of these, lower value tasks off your plate. And then after you've gotten those lower value tasks off your plate, then of course you're eventually going to want to hire somebody who's a little bit more proficient at that business unit than you are. But that would be sort of how I would structure the evolution of a company. So you and your co-founder, you delegate tasks, you codify these systems and processes, you hire some admin support to take those systems and processes away from you. And then you can start to hire more, VP or C-suite that can not just take existing processes, but improve them and then scale them. That would be how I would think through co-founder, tasks, delegation, hiring.
And how do you build? So to me, I agree with those steps, but a critical element to all that is you have to build a level of trust with someone. So it's one thing to define it, but you have to trust them. I need to trust my co-founder that they're going to do the tasks that are assigned to them almost implicitly, because I'm watching over their shoulder. That's a failure state.
Yes, correct. Well, I think this is where the doing a small project together before you actually jump into business would be knowing okay, so ideal situation, you know the person and you know who they are as a human being before you go into business with them. So that would be great. Hard to get to for sure. I mean, the second way to sort of establish trust is look at their track record. See if they've done the thing that they're claiming to have done. I think that's important too. I think that's an obvious. If they haven't done it before, it's okay. But just understand that they haven't done the thing before that you're building, then they're going to have to learn. There's going to be some sort of learning curve attached to that. So obviously the best possible founder will be somebody who's or co-founder will be somebody who's done it before. And then work on a small project together. Something where there's, it's just like a handshake agreement. Let's put together an event, or let's throw up a web page and drive traffic to it. We don't have to figure out equity splits yet. It's going to be like a 3-month project. Let's just work together, see how we feel about, collaborating. And then I think it's not perfect, but that's a great way to at least start to gauge, the competency and whether or not you can trust this person to do the job they say they're going to do. And then I think that, to your point that you mentioned before, like some sort of vesting period or milestone-based equity unlock would be, listen, this is not trust. This is just more structuring the agreement so that, worst case scenario, you walk away with as little damage as possible. That would be, I don't know, trust. Trust is the big one. That's why I personally don't love working with people that I haven't known. And I know their family, gone to their wedding. Like those are the kinds of people that I like to work with, but that's not always feasible. But if you can, that would be the person that I'd want to work with.
Of course. No, I would generally agree with that too. Although there's always the risk, of course, if that goes wrong, you now lose a friendship or some other sort of relationship.
That's true too. That is true too. Listen, nobody said this game was easy.
So true. So you mentioned
what would you do? I'm curious about you're asking me great questions, but I would say that I haven't been the perfect business partner and perfect vetter of co-founders because, to your point, most of the stuff that I've built with somebody else, I've actually killed. So I think that actually, if you have any wisdom, just for the audience, these are just lessons learned through failures, which is how all lessons are learned. But if you have better ways to build trust, just put it on the record so that the audience can learn, because I'm curious how to do it successfully. Because being super candid, there hasn't been many businesses that I've built from scratch where the co-founder has been the right fit. This has been like a learning process for me.
Yeah. In a weird way, I might say part of it is, look, I think having a co-founder can be really valuable, but it's also incredibly dangerous. So some of the greatest risk factors for a startup are that there's a co-founder breakup and things fail. You can have a lot of success early on. And then even if you have co-founders who are on the same page. So I was a co-founder of a company. My co-founder, we had very complementary skill sets, everything was well set. And then he just decided he wanted to go in a completely different direction of the company, just completely different. And that kind of killed the company. I mean, we still had an exit. It was okay.
Yeah.
But like, it still kind of killed the company. And you don't know those things. I think some are just, you can't expect or figure out what's going to happen in those scenarios. On the other hand, another lesson would be, hey, look, are there things you can do on your own where you sort of say, I'm going to go just do this by myself and go in that direction. But, can you go do stuff on your own?
Yeah.
And so, for Chore, my current company, I don't have a co-founder, but instead, and granted, it's my fourth company. So you could say I've learned some of these lessons. On the other hand, what you do have to be really good at when you don't have a co-founder is you have to figure out who you can hire well. And with people you hire well, to me, that does come down to trust pretty quickly. Like, you got to hire, hopefully well, have a good system in place. What am I looking for? What is the job role going to be? There's a sort of a who methodology of like how to hire. There's some of those things you can follow. But then you got to build that trust pretty quickly. Say, I need to know, are you getting your job done? And can I trust you to go do that? And once you have that level of trust, you can let someone do their job and not get in the way.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that just goes for, once again, for anything. And so I guess my long-winded way of saying, I'm not actually sure a lot of people should have co-founders, which I know is kind of actually against the general advice.
No, I actually agree with that. I was going to say that, you sort of pointed out like all my failures. I appreciate that, but not good.
Well, but those failures are really important. Those help. So have you become who you are today.
So I'll tell you why I took on co-founders in almost everything I've done over the past five-ish years. I think that it was, and listen, I've evolved a lot too, but I think it was a lack of trust in myself. I think that was it. So, I jumped into I mentioned a couple things. I jumped into private equity. I tried to do like a sort of like a mastermind event-based business. I tried to do a supplement business. And a lot of the partnership was me thinking like, okay, I know what I'm good at, and I don't know what I'm not good at. I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm not good at. And it seems like it's safer for me to trust someone else who claims to be good at this thing than to figure out this whole new world myself. You know what? I think that actually sometimes I should listen to my own advice, and everything that's good that's happened in my life has come from me trusting myself. And in those moments, not that there's anything wrong. I didn't partner with like bad people. There was never like fraud or anything, like never, ever. All really good people. But for a variety of reasons, they weren't as competent, weren't as ambitious, weren't as hardworking. I should have trusted myself, because if I had built any of those things solo, any of those things would probably still be here today. But because you started with the wrong person, and then I was sort of like dancing around this topic. You're like, okay, you know what? I don't want this to be $100 million business with this person. Like that's the conversation I had with myself, because I'm like, this is pre-revenue. This is already a nightmare. So I can only imagine what kind of nightmare it's going to be when it's like an actual business. And that's why I killed it.
So you said though, it was sort of trust in yourself. I mean, it sounds like it's actually more about confidence in yourself and your skill set and abilities.
Yeah.
Like, and so how do you as a founder or what's your advice to people to feel that level of confidence? Because guess what? Like the whole idea of being an entrepreneur is you're going to do something that probably hasn't been done before the way you want to go do it. It's doing something that's brand new, that hasn't been done successfully. And most people might think you're totally insane to go try that thing.
I would say most, yes. I think that one thing that's helped me a lot, because a lot of what we're talking about are these like internal conversations I have with myself. Like, why don't I just trust myself to go do this and learn it and execute it myself? Like, what was the thing? And I think that I think this is a problem that most people have, is you can call it imposter syndrome, whatever. There's a million different words for it, but you focus on on the bad shit that's happened in your life, and you don't focus on the wins. And I think that when you focus on how many times you won, how many times you succeeded, you start to train your brain to see the positive, and train your brain to see the opportunity, and train your brain to really understand that all the other times when you have succeeded, It was just trusting yourself. So why would this time be any different? But if we don't force ourselves to actually think that way, I think it's very easy for us to focus on the negative and focus on the potential what ifs and focus on the worst possible outcome. I think that there's sort of two ideas here. One is just focusing on your wins and whether or not, like, people do this in different ways, whether or not you just write down all the times you've been successful, or maybe just scroll through your Instagram and see all like the incredible life events that, have happened to you and how many times that you had this big career win, or you had this big entrepreneurship win, or you closed your first client or whatever. You forget those things so quickly, but you remember all the other bullshit and all the other negative. But if we actually look back at our life, we win way more than we lose. Every single person on this earth wins way more often than we lose. We just focus on the negative. So finding a way to focus on the positive and focusing on all the times when you took a chance and it worked out, that's a really good way to condition your mind to see the positive outcome in jumping into something new that you've never done before. But also there's a Tim Ferriss idea called fear setting, which is to look at the worst possible outcome, like insanely worst possible outcome. So say, for example, we're talking about putting together any kind of launching a private equity fund. So, okay, so what do I have to do for that? I have to, figure out how to raise money. I have to make sure that it's structured properly so that I can, do I have to go get a license? Who are the investors and the LPs I'm going to bring in? What kind of businesses? What's our thesis? What's the businesses we're going to actually acquire or invest in? And like, say it doesn't go well, right? Like, what's the worst possible thing that can happen? Well, you raise the money, and this is fear setting. You raise the money, businesses don't go well, you get sued, your reputation's destroyed. What's going to happen? You're never going to get another job. Boy, you're going to end up on the street. You're going to be homeless, destitute. Like, obviously that's not going to happen. And then when you realize that you're probably not going to end up homeless, maybe some things don't go well, but really is the worst possible outcome a reality? 99% chance that it's not at all. Now, when you start to understand that your fears are kind of just hyperbole, and you're not taking that chance on yourself of doing the thing because you're so scared of this potential negative outcome that really has like no chance of actually happening, then all of a sudden you're like, okay, so the thing that I'm scared of has a really low chance of happening. And also every time I bet on myself, it's actually worked out in my favor, or at least the majority of the time it has. So when you start to realize that, you start to rationalize, okay, so why not just take a chance on myself, because it's worked out before and it probably won't end up that poorly. And I think those are two really good mental models to approach like a problem or a task or a situation that really you have no experience or you've never taken on before. And those two ideas have really helped me sort of jump into new things and just placed responsibility on myself and taken a chance on myself.
It's such a good point. It's one thing maybe you actually think about myself, of course, when you were saying that. And weird, but I actually have like amnesia about failure.
I love it. You're blessed. Not many people have.
I know. I totally am. It's funny. Like, obviously, like, I remember all the times I failed, but I don't view them as failures. I view every single one as like I got something great from it, and it led to new things. Like there's a bunch of people like, were you able to invest in so many great companies? I was like, oh, because I was working late at night on my struggling startup every fucking day, nonstop, like late, and I'm hanging out with all these interesting other people who are starting other cool companies, and you start shooting the shit with them, and you learn about cool stuff. And next thing you know, you're investing in them, and it leads to all these cool things. Like, so was the company that I was working on a failure? Yeah, like it failed, it shut down. But like, what about all the great things that came from it? And so like, that's sort of how I just view so many things. And yes, it's very lucky. I don't know if I probably have worked in that over time in my life, but it just.
Well, I think that this is, at the beginning of this conversation, we spoke about like jumping into entrepreneurship and taking risk. And I think that when you take risk, there's sort of two outcomes, right? You fail or you succeed. That's really, there's not really much else. I mean, you could say that it could take you longer to fail or longer to succeed, but you're kind of like going in one of two directions.
Sure.
And so you succeed, whatever, great. You made some money, on to the next thing. But if you fail, like you build these like mental calluses towards failure, right? Like say I raise, we're talking about investor money. Say I raise money and I lose it all, which I've never like lost completely investor money, just for the record, but say I lose it all, right? As somebody who's never raised money, that'd be very stressful. The first time you get sued, that's very stressful. I mean, even if you've done nothing wrong, it's like your heart stops. Like you're like, oh my God, like first of all, anyone who's ever built a business ever has gotten sued at some point. So, but the first time it would ever happen, like, oh my God, my life is over. Now, not to say that you shouldn't take raising money seriously or lawsuits seriously, but to show you the opposite end of the spectrum, do you think Trump loses any sleep when he gets sued? You think Musk loses any sleep when they get sued? These are not role models that I'm asking you to aspire to.
He gets sexually excited by
I think so too. I think he gets a little bit turned on. That's true. But I think the point is you have to expose yourself to risk so that you can build up this mental callousness towards these stressful events. But this is a part of pushing boundaries. This is a part of going to the next level. This is a part of building anything excellent, because when you do succeed, yeah, people will always be upset with you. People will always come after you. You want to talk about like ridiculous things that happen when you're successful. With the supplement company, we were targeted by a ambulance chaser lawyer, one of these people that goes to all the websites, finds like the one non-ADA compliant part of your website, and then finds somebody with a disability. This is a real thing. And they will send legal letters to say like 100 different companies saying, hey, we saw like one widget on your site was not ADA compliant. And all they want you to do is settle. And they'll go after like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of companies. And we were targeted. We settled. It was annoying. But the point is that we actually had ADA plugins on our site, as do most of these companies that are actually targeted. You're not doing anything wrong. You're not malicious. You're not an asshole. You're not trying to stop people from purchasing your product or giving people a hard time. When you build anything significant, you become a target. So it's better to be able to navigate these situations effectively than letting fear control your business, your life, et cetera, et cetera. So the more risk you take, the more exposure you get to the real world, and the more effective you become. And I think that is just a great, arena to throw yourself into, because when you understand that like life isn't all like, unicorns and rainbows, even if you are the best possible, most ethical business founder, entrepreneur ever, there'll still be things that are going to shake you. Then all of a sudden, you know what? Building doesn't become so scary. Jumping into the next thing doesn't become so scary. So this is not me giving you the okay to go be an asshole and to go get sued. But the point is, this is reality when you're building anything worth building. So the more exposure you have, the more risk you take, the more things that you experience, the more effective you're going to be. And in the long run, this is what I mean about when you become entrepreneurial, because of all these experiences that you accrue, you end up future-proofing yourself to almost anything. So if the business fails, you get sued, you go bankrupt, whatever it is, whatever negative experience, it doesn't affect you. You jump into the next thing. Your company goes bankrupt. You're like, I don't want to build another company. Great. You have so many skills and so much lived experience that any company would love to have. Go take a C-suite position. Go get a nice salary. You're safe. You're like one of my good friends. He had an exit, and now he's a CEO of a publicly traded company. He sold a company. I can speak about him. His name's Leo Pareja. He's the CEO of EXP. They're like a $4 billion company. He had an exit in real estate. Really young guy. Like all the experience that he just gained by building and having wins, and obviously having probably some very stressful moments in his own career as an entrepreneur. All that was so valuable. He's now C-suite of a pubco. I mean, there's so many ways to do life. And I think that's why early on, for sure, taking risk, putting yourself in uncomfortable situations, you don't always know where it's going to end up. I mean, when he was starting to build his last company, Reinvent, I don't think that he knew he was going to be a CEO of a pubco. Maybe he was, thinking about where his path would lead. But ultimately, the more you experience, just the more valuable you are to the world. And I think that's the least risky thing you can do.
Yeah, certainly for yourself as an individual. Speaking of that a little bit, the real estate example I thought you were going to give from sort of someone killing themselves. You had a friend, if I recall, who fired all his teammates on one day and killed himself like days later.
Yeah.
Would you be able to
That's not such a good story. That's a
right? But I mean, that's the flip side of it, right? So someone who really had his ego totally tied into it was unable to move past where he thought, even though he was so successful. Contrast that with the story you just gave of your friend who's Hubco CEO now.
Yeah. So obviously same industry, radically different outcomes. So I have a friend who,
But it could have been the same outcome, right?
yes, it's all about how you handle pressure and how you handle stress. That's why I think exposing yourself to micro stresses, that's why I think everybody should expose themselves to entrepreneurship at some point. I'll tell this story in a second, but when you expose yourself to all these like micro stresses and all these small little events, you build a company, you get, a lawsuit for website ADA compliance, you have to settle for, $5,000. You hire somebody who turns out to be a not great employee, you got to fire them, which is always uncomfortable. Firing your first person, it's never like, it doesn't get easier. It's always uncomfortable. All these little stresses, they build up your resilience. But
that's like working out, right? I mean, like you want micro stresses on your muscles, and your muscles.
Exactly. It's very similar. There's so many great. That's why I like interviewing football coaches and basketball coaches, because there's so many similarities between what creates like performance for a professional athlete and like some of the mindset that a successful entrepreneur has to adopt to be successful. There's a lot of crossover. Like, well, this is actually why I think a lot of great entrepreneurs at some point were somewhat athletic, because if you can figure out how to be in a 0.001% of your sport, and you can just take that and you can apply it to a business, you're going to be very successful. Because a lot of those
same mindset.
Yeah, same mindset is going to be required. Anyways, a little bit more of a sad story. So I have a friend, but a very large real estate company. And a couple months ago, the whole real estate industry was shaken up. There was a lawsuit by NAR, the National Association of Realtors, based on how people buy homes and sell homes and how commissions are calculated and how things are marketed. And the company was roughly $100 million in revenue. It was a very big company.
Which is, I mean, what percentage of entrepreneurs hit that revenue number? That's like 0.001% or something over here.
The guy was not a new entrepreneur. And basically his whole business, I don't actually know how this lawsuit, which did shake up the industry. I mean, every brokerage in real estate paid some sort of settlement. It was like a big deal, but like everybody's still working, everybody's still running. So I don't really know what he had thought was going to happen, but his entire identity was wrapped up into his business. And this lawsuit happened. There was not even a settlement at the point when what happened occurred. And on Friday, he fired his entire, he sent a company-wide email. He fired
how many people were on the team?
I think both 400 or 500.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. All these people who were relying on him, this their job, they had families to take care of. All that.
And he fired everyone on Friday, and he killed himself on Monday. And that is the worst possible outcome of this is the sad thing. For a lot of entrepreneurs, your identity becomes your business.
100%.
That's actually the things that allow you to be successful are the same things that can take you down. Because a lot of people, if their identity isn't their business, there's so much bullshit that happens when you're an entrepreneur that it's really hard to push through it if you don't fully believe in what you're doing.
Right. You restate it. You have to believe so much in your what you're
Correct.
building that you're willing to keep going even when it gets really tough.
Yes, but that means that your identity, who you are as a person, is your business. Now, and I don't really know why this happened. I don't quite understand it, but I don't think anybody does. I think that's part of it, but part of it in the sense that it's very hard to get into the mind of somebody whose whole identity is work. Because for the average person, that doesn't make any sense. And I don't think it's healthy, but it's the side effect of building something significant and maybe, not doing some of the self-work and not taking a step back and not realizing there's a lot more to life than work and business. And I think that's, we can talk all day about all the goals that you should have and, you should focus on time with your family. But the reality is a lot of people that are entrepreneurial, they're all in on their business, and that's how they made it successful. But
so is there almost like a fine line between that that psychosis of being so in that you are able to do crazy things and you can kind of fall over the wrong edge too easily.
You can fall over the wrong edge. It's a beautiful but very sad way of saying it. Yes, you can fall over the wrong edge.
When you think through like the top entrepreneurs in the world, however you want to define it, right? The Bezos, Musk, Jobs of the world. What do you think made them who they are, or maybe all the hundreds of others we have no idea about who don't who haven't done such big things or been so crazy to have major books written about them? What do you think has enabled them to achieve?
I think obsession. But I think that some manage it better than others. Like I don't think that the way that Elon Musk thinks is the way that a normal person thinks.
Yeah.
Like most entrepreneurs to some degree, and Musk included, there's degrees of neurodivergence. Like it's not normal to commit so much of yourself to that thing. And like, I would say that all billionaires have a level of obsession and have a level of, I guess, I don't know if psychosis is the right word. Maybe it is. I don't know what the actual clinical definition of psychosis is, but obsession, this dependency between their work and their identity, because it's not about money anymore. Like there's something beyond, right? There's something that most people don't understand, because who would want to do that? Who would want to repeatedly expose themselves to more criticism? To like, you have to have some sort of mission. But even like if we look at Musk, for example, I understand like some of his mission. I understand that he's, trying to put people on Mars. I understand that there's a lot of advancing humanity mission in some of his companies. There's some things that he takes on that I don't really understand why he does it. I don't think it benefits him at all.
But John, I wonder if you could say give him a lot of credit for that. There's no thoughtful advancement in it. He just believes it is the right thing to do. Whether you agree with it, he just believes it's the right thing to do.
Well, I think that you could say the same thing for Trump. I mean, I don't think that Trump, like, I know that people always joke about, he's had so many bankruptcies and whatnot. Like, I don't think the guy was hurting for money before he went into office. Like, he has had success in real estate. I think there's a lot of things he hasn't had success in, but he's had a ton of success in real estate. Like, he's not like, hurting for rent next month. So then you ask, like, why do you do these things? It's because of just pure belief, regardless of whether or not you align with it. It's just this insane amount of belief. And that is not, the average person does not have that much belief in one thing.
It's not just even that. I mean, I think, Elon is a good example of this to some extent, where, he went in, most CEOs, regardless of their wealth level or anything else, avoid politics to some extent because they don't want to anger one side or the other.
Of course. It doesn't benefit them. It doesn't improve their life. It detracts from their life.
But that's a weird rationalization, you could argue, because if you're that rich, right? So let's take Bezos as the counter example, right? So Bezos, one of the top 5 richest people in the world, Musk, the number 1 richest person in the world. Musk is like, I'm going all in getting Trump elected, whether you agree with it or not. But like, he was like, I am all in, like, in a way that no public company CEO has ever been.
Yes.
Probably ever. I am so all in, my personal fortune, putting a huge amount of money on the line, being very publicly on stage. Bezos, who has all the money in the world too, did the opposite. He says, Washington Post, I'm going to kind of bow down. We're not going to endorse anybody for this election cycle, which the Washington Post has always endorsed someone. He essentially did the opposite. And you sort of say, like, well, arguably Bezos did the rational thing, but do you think he lost? I do wonder now, talking through this, and like, did Bezos lose some of his craziness as he became wealthier and richer and lost some of that hunger, where he said, I'm going to make these bets that may or may not work out, but I'm not scared of the outcome anymore. Like,
but the difference between like Bezos and Musk, Bezos hired Jassy to run Amazon.
Totally.
Like, Elon keeps starting new companies.
Yeah.
So of course, the way that they look at the world and the way that they look at life and enjoyment and fulfillment is very different. Nothing that Bezos is doing in terms of politics is out of line with sort of his business character, if that makes sense. Like, he wants to enjoy life. He does. I think that he's one of the few billionaires that seems to be enjoying life exceptionally well. Elon seems to enjoy life in a very different way. So if you're going to if you look at the fact that he's still launching new companies, obviously he wants to have impact. Bezos feels like his impact is probably through like philanthropic and investment and whatnot, but Elon wants to have active impact. I don't think Bezos wants to like be an operator in a company to any degree anymore.
Well, he's I think pretty deep in Blue Origin, his space company.
True. That's very true, actually. Yeah, that is true.
But it's different. I think you lose, Bezos probably has gotten a little bit more satisfied with life, and there's other things he's focused on. And for whatever reason, Elon still has this push. Are there certain cultural elements do you think like all the best folks share, like building a culture in your company? Like, are there similarities between Tesla and Amazon and Apple and Microsoft and other great entrepreneurs you've talked to?
Well, I think the most important thing is to model excellence. I think that's very important. I think that modeling excellence attracts other A players. I don't think that's a novel concept, but if you look at any of those guys that we just mentioned, again, they're insanely good entrepreneurs. You can have a conversation with Elon or Bezos about anything in any one of their companies, and they know it so incredibly well that their competency and their knowledge can rival like the subject matter expert. Like Bezos and Elon can have smart conversations about rockets. They're so brilliant. So they model excellence. And I think that there's a lot of elements to culture, but, we mentioned a few like trust and giving ownership to other people and not micromanaging. These are all important things. But I think that it starts with modeling excellence. Like if you will never hire somebody and you'll never attract somebody, let alone get the chance to hire somebody, if you don't model like excellence yourself. And I think that is the cultural takeaway for a founder. Like you have to hire A players because A players attract other A players. So in turn, you have to be that A player yourself. So whatever you're lacking in or whatever, listen, if you are putting half-ass effort into a company, you're going to attract half-ass people. None of the people that are successful, they put 150% of themselves into it. So know that it's going to be a lot of hard work, and that will attract the people that will ironically make the work on yourself much easier. But at the beginning, make that, at least for that season of your life, make the thing that you're building all encompassing, which is also why seasons are important, because there'll be a point where you don't want it to be all encompassing. But when you throw yourself into it, when you consistently upskill yourself, I think that's when you attract people to build the culture that emulates who you are.
And seasons can last for a long time. I mean, I don't think a lot of people say, well, when my company gets this size, it's going to be easier for me. Like, no, it just changes. Like
it changes. Yes. But also I know people that have built very large companies, and when their companies are doing well over 100 million in revenue is when they have the most time on their hands. But that's also because they've rolled up their sleeves. And for the past 15 years, they've worked more than, most people would ever feel comfortable working. And it's gotten to the point where then they've attracted the right people that now, on a Tuesday afternoon, they've delegated so well that they don't have the meetings and they can just take some time and focus on, higher level stuff for the company. But that didn't get there without being an exceptionally smart, hardworking person.
Yeah, no, I should believe the prerequisite to any of this. If you want to be an entrepreneur, and frankly, if you want to be a success in any part of life, entrepreneur or not, there's a level of hard work that comes from that. If you're unwilling to work hard, you will never do much more than be really good at scrolling on Instagram.
A couple more ideas that I think are interesting. One, building a business, getting the career you want, being an entrepreneur, it's not complicated. There's a playbook for it. There's a playbook that you can copy. We're in the age of, we've democratized access to information. Every podcast, every book, every YouTube video, I can figure out whatever I want. I can figure out how to, get a proper LTV to CAC ratio on my Facebook ad set, get positive ROAS. I can figure out how to craft the perfect subject line to an LP to get them to put a couple $1,000,000 into my fund. I can figure out how to hire the right people. I can look at this hiring tool. I can look at, how to forecast out. I can look at anything and everything. I can learn. The access to information is incredible. So it's not complicated, but it is hard work. That's really the answer. It's not complicated. Everything you want to know is out there. The other idea that I think is very important, you mentioned that if you're not willing to do hard work, all you're good for is clocking in and scrolling on Instagram. Those jobs are gone. We have AI. Those jobs are gone. Everybody has to be one of two things: an entrepreneur or an intrapreneur. That's it. Before, you could get away with just half-assing it because there was there were jobs that required just, task execution.
Right. Follow this instruction, move this widget from point A to point B.
Those jobs are gone. So AI has gotten rid of those jobs. And for manual labor, there's a guy named Brett Adcock, along with a whole bunch of others that are building robotics companies. Those jobs, task execution jobs, are gone. Right now, I just keep seeing one of my friends invested in his company, and this guy's incredible. He's had multiple exits, and I think he's worth like $1 billion now. He's a really young guy, but he's building a robotics company called Figure AI. I'm not invested in it myself. I wish I was, but I digress. So this is not a conflict of interest. But he just closed a deal with, I think, BMW. And if you go to his LinkedIn, he has videos of these robots basically he's testing these robots as like package sorters, and basically they're already at the point where they could probably replace with more efficiency anybody in a warehouse. And they're not, he's just doing like a test pilot with an auto manufacturer. But if you actually see the videos he's posting, like if he rolled out 1,000 of these robots, like most warehouse workers,
warehouse workers, but also there's also truck driving, which is a massive profession for a large majority of Americans.
Of course. Yeah. But now you can have, if they have, how good is like full self-driving or autonomous driving with Waymo just overtook Lyft in market share, and it's on pace to overtake Uber in the next 12 months.
I didn't know that.
I just saw this on Twitter yesterday. There was a graph.
The first thing in San Francisco to start with must be that's their first market. I mean, everyone in San Francisco I know, everyone prefers Waymo because you don't get in the car, it's clean, you don't talk to the driver. It's a really smooth ride. Since everyone's sitting on their phone, you don't want to get car sick. They have a smooth ride. It's safer. You don't have to worry about the person being drunk or tired or anything else. And right now the price is the same, but you also don't have to leave a tip. So it's actually a little bit cheaper. And I'm sure over time, the price is going to drop dramatically.
It's game over for these companies. I'm actually surprised that Uber and Lyft are not doing a better job of keeping up, but whatever.
Yeah, I think everyone's going to become an entrepreneur because there won't be any other jobs.
Well, that's what I mean. So I said entrepreneur. So people that are creative problem solvers that figure out solutions to problems that maybe the company didn't even know exist. People that can take two disparate ideas and merge them together into one creative solution. That's an entrepreneur. That's somebody, if you do it within a company, you're an entrepreneur. If you do outside of a company, you're an entrepreneur. It's the same personality type, the same view of the world, where you are constantly building and breaking and learning on your own and not waiting for somebody to tell you what to do, but just taking that shit on yourself. Like if you're in a company right now, entrepreneurs everywhere are doing this. If you're in a company right now and you want to figure out, okay, what does an entrepreneur look like? Okay, so you have your JD, your job description. You are trying to figure out, go learn like Lovable or N8N or something else that can make your job redundant, and learn that shit better than anyone else in your company. Because I can guarantee you, if you bring that stuff to your company and you teach departments on how to include AI and automation into your organization, you're the one person that they won't get rid of. Now, know that there will be at one point all of these tools incorporated into the company, because every company that I know a lot of CEOs are all trying to figure this out right now. And if you even look at the biggest ones, like the Shopify's and the Fiverrs, where the CEOs have gone on record publicly stating that they're putting on hiring freezes, and anybody that they do hire is going to be proficient in AI, and they are doing massive layoffs. And the behind the scenes of a lot of companies that I know, their founders or CEOs, they are systematically implementing some of these AI solutions and automation solutions and agent solutions as well, AI agent solutions, to replace huge amounts of people. So you have to be an entrepreneur as somebody that understands what's happening in the future and learns it and executes or enables it or teaches it within a company. And even if, for example, that company does replace you at some point, the skill sets that you've learned in that company make you hireable in a million other places, or somebody who can just go build something themselves and become an entrepreneur.
Correct. You can go build your own stuff.
Exactly. So that's the future of work. That's where we're at.
But it even goes back to the entrepreneur part. Just a personal example really fast was my very first job out of grad school. In my first year, so I was in corporate, basically like M&A, right? Corporate strategy for the company. So we're looking for companies to buy, doing a lot of financial modeling. I then decided to make a proposal to the company that we should start a corporate social responsibility group, essentially like early days of like environmental, like let's make our environmental footprint worthwhile.
Yeah.
Wasn't part of my main job. My boss, to his credit, said, you can go do this, but you need to get like approval from the senior executive team to go do this, everything else. I went and made a presentation to the CEO and COO of the company to go do this. By the way, this is a publicly traded company, so it's pretty big. And I'm this like straight out of grad school, right? So pretty young.
I love it.
I went and did that. They gave me budget to go build it. I hired an outside company to go help me go build some other pieces to it. I won an award at the end of that year for this stuff. And people were like, who are you? Who is this junior person? Like, people, I've been in this company for like 20 years. Who the heck do you think you are? And I'm like, no one is building this. The company should do it. It's now getting them, like, they're winning new contracts because the contract started having these requirements. Do you have a corporate like responsibility? Plea, like as part of your business. And like, oh yeah, we actually do. Yeah. So, I mean, there's like this super junior person named Adam Spector put in place. Like, what are you thinking? And of course, then that's led to all these other things in my career. But that was, I just did that because like it needed to happen. And I wasn't, what are they going to tell me? No. Okay. Yeah. Like, granted, by the way, the company did make a mistake. I will say that the one mistake they made was, just real quick, I'm sorry, going on this tangent, but like,
no, you're good.
I did say to the head of HR, not head of HR, sorry, junior person in HR. I said like, hey, like, how do I get promoted in the company? What is my path here? What's my career path? It's like, how do I get to my boss's level? He was pretty senior. They're like, well, it's going to basically take 20 years. And I was like, wait a second, it's going to take 20 years to get to his vision. I was like, but what if I leave and go to a different company and get a new title at that company, like job hop, and then come back and get a new title from you? Like, she literally said to me, she's like, that'll take like 3 years.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay. So I have to leave. And, you know, to me, that was a terrible mindset for a company to not be willing to like.
That happened to me once too. Where my director wanted to give me a pay bump. And when I first started my career, and there was like rate bands, and there was like internal promotion rate bands, and there was external promotion rate band, or external hire rate band. And he's like, I can't pay you what I want to pay you because you're an internal employee, and like the company forces me to put you at this salary. He's like, I want your resignation on my desk, and then I want a job application on my desk at the same time, and I'm going to hire you external, and we're going to pay you, X amount of dollars. And I was like, this is so fucking stupid. It's just so stupid.
And that's I don't know how companies don't get past that, but the thing is,
these are the companies that get disrupted.
Correct.
Straight up.
Yeah. They end up getting disrupted. You end up losing, and that's what you need to change. So
can I tell you one more thing too? I just want to. I'm sorry. Just on this point, this is why I've always found that my best hires are people that would be entrepreneurs, just because they're in a different season of their life. That's not what they want to do.
Yeah.
So maybe they just had a kid. Maybe they need stability because they have like a sick parent and they can't go 6 months without a paycheck. I think that's really, I think those are the people that you have to look for. That people that are like, one of my best hires a while ago, he was somebody that built a company, and he's like, I sold it. I just don't want the headache anymore. Like, I just don't want, I hired him as a VP of sales, and he had built a company from scratch, and he just didn't want headache. And I'm like, you know what? I appreciate that. But you just find somebody that's okay taking risk, okay figuring shit out, okay taking on responsibility. Those are the best hires. I mean, it's hard to find them, but like, just look for them as much as you can, and maybe don't, the sayings are all true, right? Like, hire slow, fire fast. But I would layer on like, find entrepreneurs that are just in different seasons of their life. And those are the people that you want to hire in any role.
Totally agree. Scott, are there any key things, if you had to give yourself advice overall, like given all this advice, if you look back 30 years, 20 years, so your early version of yourself just getting started, is there any advice you give yourself as an early starting entrepreneur or starting in your career?
So we've touched on this, but it's a very meaningful idea. And it's actually an idea that shook me out of sort of the life that my parents lived and the life that sort of school had set up for me. So when I not started my podcast, but this is the thing that led me to start my podcast. So I was listening to a podcast. I was actually listening to Seth Godin, and which I love his work. And now he's been on the show several times, so that I've had like several like full circle moments. But I was listening to his podcast, Akimbo, and one of the closing lines in his podcast, he was talking about, and he was telling the story of Icarus. And the story of Icarus is this guy that, flies close to the sun in mythology, and he gets burnt and he falls. And anyways, But Seth's reinterpretation of the story was basically, you can fly close to the sun, you won't get burnt, I promise. And that line like still gives me, I just got goosebumps. It's such a beautiful idea because it summarizes everything we're talking about. And that was the idea that kind of gave me that initial courage to start to build, to start to move away from a 9 to 5 mindset and just realize that, you know what? You have one shot at this life. Go do the thing. Even if it doesn't work out, you're not going to get burnt, I promise. And that was a really empowering idea. So I would have wanted my younger self to understand the power of that idea. And I want everybody who's listening to this to understand the power of that idea, because I think that that's the answer to happiness and fulfillment is to fly a little bit closer to the sun because you won't get burnt.
Essentially, no fear.
No fear. No fear.
So related to that, and the last question I always ask people, but it's related but also really different, is there a single piece of advice you would give people today? Maybe it is also just no fear, but is there a single piece out of all this, one piece of advice to be a excellent entrepreneur?
Once you have gotten over the fear and taken that leap, would be to constantly disrupt yourself and constantly disrupt your company. Look for the things, first of all, of course, we already spoke about, killing the things that don't work, but adopt the idea of, even if something is working, there are no sacred cows in business. You have to kill and reinvent and disrupt even the things that are working so that they work even better. And I think that constantly disrupting yourself, thinking that, what got me here won't get me there, constantly disrupting the things that I know, meaning, okay, I was very proficient at XYZ, but now I got to learn, ABC, and constantly disrupting the things that are in the company. Like, okay, fine, it's working, but how do we reinvent it? How do we reimagine it? Because Blockbuster is such a cliche example, but everything in Blockbuster was working until it didn't. So if you don't disrupt yourself, if you don't encourage your employees to disrupt their knowledge and to learn new things, if you don't encourage everyone in the company to sort of disrupt the existing business model that you already have and think of new ideas, someone externally will disrupt what you're doing and then come take your market share. So I think that just constant disruption and constant innovation are key, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs, again, get over the fear, build, then get complacent. So the whole goal is to not get complacent forever.
It's really hard, I think, for some people to stay in that mindset. And also it's hard because your team gets scared, right? When you have a bigger team, change is harder and harder the bigger the team gets. Like I've seen that many times myself.
But you create an environment of psychological safety where challenging the status quo is rewarded and speaking up is rewarded. And people aren't chastised when they say that this sucks or that sucks. You're like, you praise that shit. Yeah. I think that that's really what you have to do. And you can lead by example, as we mentioned, like modeling excellence, like model everything. If you want your team to speak up and say when something's broken, when you're in meetings with them, like recognize how dumb some of your ideas from 6 months ago were and why they didn't work. Like be a little bit self-deprecating. And I think that when you are a little bit self-deprecating, you realize your own limitations and you vocalize them to your team and you communicate them. That gives everybody a little bit more, again, creates a psychologically safe environment for other people to speak up and constantly encourage and be like, listen, the more that you can tell me what sucks, the better everything is going to be. So please, like, don't just have like a bullshit open door policy, like encourage like radical candor. These are all important ideas, way easier said than done. But when you build this into, speaking about culture before, when you build all these ideas into the culture and like the company, because you can't figure out everything yourself, this is when you can effectively disrupt yourself repeatedly so that a competitor doesn't do it to you.
In Scott, I know we keep going, so I'm like looking at my notes. I have so many other questions that I know I want to ask, but
if you want, whatever, we could do another one in the future. It doesn't matter.
We might have to. How can people find you if they want to learn more, hear about all the things that you've been up to, what you're doing, who you talk to, hear how you interview, and when you're on the other side of this,
Yeah.
where can they find you?
So all the socials pretty easy. It's at Scott D. Clary. And then podcast is called Success Story, and I have awesome conversations just like this with a whole bunch of entrepreneurs. So if you like this, hopefully you'll like the show as well.
Absolutely, Scott. Thank you so much. Your time is precious, so thank you for spending a bunch of it with me.
No, I appreciate it. This is an awesome podcast, and I appreciate what you're doing as well. And hopefully the audience listens, pays attention, takes notes, because the caliber of questions that you ask and the conversations that you have, all you need to do to build a business, to level up in your career, to basically future-proof yourself so that whatever happens with AI and robots and any other technology coming down the pipeline, if you listen to enough of these episodes, you're going to be safe and you're going to do just fine. So thank you again.
Hey, thank you. That means a lot. If you love this episode, subscribe to our channel and give this studio a thumbs up. Also, tell us the number one takeaway you got from this episode in the comments so more entrepreneurs can learn, grow, and thrive. Until next time.